The next special material to look at is called depth of field. And here we see a selection of those billiard balls again. I have a directional light and I have a location for a camera. This is the only time I'm using a camera. Now let's just discover which light we're looking at. It's one of the directional ones, so let's just click on that with the center active and see if that turns up correctly. Yes, that's that one. So that's the one I want. So let's turn that on. And now I'm going to go to my saved view of this. There's my saved view. So now I'm looking down the length of the 2 rows of those balls. My light is at the top of this line, and of course my camera's down here. So let's see what this looks like when I show you the render. There it is. And you'll see the depth of field happening. We see everything in focus here because the camera was aimed at this ball. Everything else going backwards is slowly but surely losing focus. This is the location of the full depth of field. Now we see receding and softer focus as we move backwards. Now, to see that, we need to go to the rendering setup. What I'm interested in here is on the settings menu, and it's this depth of field. And here is the focal length. It's the f-stop of a camera, if you are familiar with that. The smaller the f-stop, the shorter the depth of field, and the blurrier the background. So we get up to a high f-stop, and we have essentially a telephoto lens with a very large depth of field. So again, experiment with that. Let's get back to isometric. Let's get rid of my perspective view and zoom out a little bit. Next couple of things here. What we're looking at here is called displacement. Now this geometry doesn't exist on the element at all. It's merely produced in the rendering. So let's look at the material for this. I have a displacement material and I have a displacement handle material. Now the handle material is just a simple plain material. Just happens to have a grayish color, that's all. The displacement we're looking at is this. Red color, no pattern, very low specular, no reflection, but the displacement value here is on at 50. Pattern is called depthexample.png, and you'll find this in the bumps folder. You can experiment with the scale and rotation. I have a 30-degree rotation just to break up the pattern a little and take it off the parallel sort of alignment. Anti-aliasing must also be on, and again you can experiment with that. Now you see the sample here, sort of bumpy material pattern. Okay, let's get rid of that. And let me show you what this material looks like. Now let's put that light on. This is also a directional light. My guess it's this one. And so it is. There it is, right in the middle. So if you put that one on, then you will see something like this. Isn't that interesting? Think of this as a massage ball of some sort for a spa. So we have the grayish handles, and the reddish material with the bumps is the displacement material. And again, as you change the values of the displacement material, so you can change the size of these bumps. Now there's a limit to this, of course. There comes a point where it becomes so disorganized that it's impossible to use. But it's worth experimenting with. And I've left you with one to work with. So experiment with both of these, and this one is similar, but now it's simply a cylinder rather than a sphere. See what you can do with that. Okay, let's move on to the next one, which is here, this little square here. And this one is called fur, which is a little strange perhaps. Let's turn off this light, and let's find that spotlight. I think it might be this one. Nope. Okay, let's try that one. Yes, there we go. There it is. So we'll turn that one on. I'm going to zoom in, and you won't see anything actually, because this is one of those situations where elements are generated by the rendering process. We do have a material, and it's called grass. The basic material, again, is pretty straightforward, simple. What's different is the fur setting here. Fur is on, and now you can set a number of variations for the type of fur. And fur is a very loose term, as you'll see. Now, these are my settings. You are obviously welcome to change them to experiment. But just be warned that fur does sometimes take quite a long time to generate. It is a complicated system. This is why I have a very small square. So let's take a look at the rendering settings. Very standard again. Make sure you've got depth of field off. Make sure that bloom is off. There's nothing special in global illumination. But as you change these, just note that the render setting will turn blue every time you make a change. And you need to save it to turn it black. And then you can select it. So let's render this, and I'll show you what this looks like. And this is what you see. It's grass, because the material was green. And this is the effects of the settings for the fur material. And as you can see, it looks natural for grass. However, there's a price to pay. The larger the area, considerably longer the rendering time, of course. And because it is so computationally intensive, you might look at this setting here under the render preferences. The geometry cache size in megabytes. You may need to increase this significantly if you're doing large areas of material like this, because the rendering process might not complete if your cache size is too low. But nonetheless, it is quite interesting, isn't it? So experiment with that and see what results you get.